Can you pinpoint the 10 security gaps in your attack surface that account for 90% of your risk? It's impossible using a combination of scanners, pen tests, breach and attack simulation tools, and manual processes. But attackers can find your gaps. They perform recon and target the weaknesses with the best return. The CyCognito platform sees your external attack surface the way attackers do, eliminating blind spots. Powered by a global bot network, the CyCognito platform prioritizes your highest risk security gaps, integrates with existing workflows, and reduces operational costs. Visit securityweekly.com/CyCognito. Welcome back, everyone, to Paul's Security Weekly. Security Weekly Unlocked will be held in person December 5th through the 8th at the Hilton Lake Buena Vista Hotel. Call for presentations deadline has been extended until tomorrow, July 23rd at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time. So if you're going to submit your talk, I know how you folks roll in InfoSec. It's going to be 11:58 p.m. Eastern Time, and we're going to get about a dozen or two submissions to the CFP, which is totally fine. Just make sure you get in before the deadline. If you don't, send me a note. I may know someone that could help you out with that. But you can go to Security Weekly Unlocked, securityweekly.com/unlocked.
You just gave them an out, Paul.
I did. I know. I shouldn't have said that. No, don't message me. securityweekly.com/unlocked. Joining us now, Gordon Draper is the founder of CyberMarket.com, a marketplace where cybersecurity consultancies and clients can find each other. In his spare time, he hunts for bug bounties, investigating vehicle to everything, and develops training courses for the next generation of InfoSec professionals. Gordon, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Hi, everyone. How are you doing?
Doing fantastic. Is that an Archer? Is that the Archer? The office?
I was going to say, that's the Archer back
That's his mom's office.
That's exactly right. It's the backgrounds in Archer are intricately drawn. And when the pandemic came along, I had to find a Zoom background, and I figured this is perfect. It shows that you're busy in the office, but
there's lots of liquor. If I remember the show correctly. Yes. That's awesome. Gordon, how'd you get your start in information security?
So I had been following information security for a long time. I've been around for about 20 years in IT, and I did an engineering degree, and then after the engineering degree, I went and did later on. I went and did some work with engineering for utilities. And then later on, I said, I'm done with utilities and project management of various engineering. I'm going to move into cybersecurity. And so I went and did a Master's of IT Security at university. And while I was there, I was picked up by one of the boutique consultancies that was just starting up in Sydney. And I've been doing pen testing, red teaming, incident response, governance, risk and compliance, security architecture. A couple of years ago, I started my own business called FortSafe, which is also one of the consultancies that's working within the CyberMarket.com marketplace.
That's awesome. Well, I want to ask you, Gordon, Australia's really far from the U.S., obviously, right? And I feel like us in the U.S. aren't in tune with kind of the information security scene.
Space and time.
Space and time, right? Yeah, I mean, you're from the future, essentially. But we're not as in tune with the kind of the culture and the scene that happens in Australia with respects to the hacker scene and the information security culture. Could you kind of maybe describe that for us?
Sure. So a couple of years ago in Sydney, there's a community chat channel and event talks and events called Sec Talks. That's held in most capital cities in Australia, and I think it's been exported to some cities in Europe as well, the UK and Amsterdam. And so it's a monthly one talk plus a CTF challenge, and then everyone goes to the pub. And so it's just a wonderful way of meeting and connecting with other people inside the community. And a few years ago, there was out of that a community. Various InfoSec conferences started popping up around 2016, and so I helped run one called Platypus Con in Sydney in 2016.
Nice.
But we've got the main one is B-Sides Canberra, and each year I go over to Black Hat and DEF CON, but our borders are shut at the moment, and Sydney's in lockdown, so not this year. We'll have to do it virtually again.
Gotcha. And are there a lot of degree programs at universities in Australia for cybersecurity?
They're starting to really pick up, yeah. So it's still seen as an advanced topic, which is a pity. So it's not until when I did my master's in 2015, it was that was the first year that they were doing cybersecurity courses, and so pen testing and web apps and incident response was one of the first years that they were doing it in the university that I was at. But another university, UNSW, is internationally renowned for hacking and security, InfoSec. So we've had some good people come through that university, even finishing in the top 5, I think it is, in DEF CON CTF. Nice. 1 year. So there's definitely some good people coming through.
If I had to describe what you do, and now I remember seeing a request come in for guests, I was like, that sounds good, because it sounds like a dating site for InfoSec nerds. Right?
It's kind of similar. It's sort of like it's a marketplace that's global, and it's connecting cybersecurity consultancies in a way that the consultancies, a lot of consultants are highly trained and are working for bigger consultancies, but they're moving out to, a lot of them are seeing that, there's a daily rate of a few $1,000s a day that they're getting charged out for, and they're getting paid hundreds. So they see that difference and think, oh, I can go out and if only I had a sales arm and a pipeline of work coming in, I could go out and charge those numbers myself. And so that's what a lot of consultants are doing at the moment. The next year in Australia and New Zealand, we had a company called CyberCX, which I think it's venture backed, but it's gobbled up. It's merged about 17 consultancies, I think, maybe even more. And so it's a mega consultancy, and that it's various consultants, while they're highly trained, when they don't necessarily like being in very large consultancies. And if the consultancy doesn't prioritize training and just treats them as a sweatshop worker, which does happen in some consultancies, they're looking for ways out. And, and starting their own consultancy is one of those ways.
How does that brokerage work then? Are you guys just taking a small percentage? Whose paper is that on? Like, are the contracts and liability insurance and vetting of the consultancies? Like, where does your kind of middle brokerage fit in, and how does a consultant need to be set up in order to work with your marketplace?
That's a really good question. So the marketplace, a consultancy object needs to be created. We're trying to mirror what's happening in the real world. So you've got a consultancy, and you've got a principal consultant or a consultancy admin for the purposes of the marketplace, and that person can make bids on projects that are being put up by clients. So clients come to the marketplace and post projects, and consultancy admins can have a look and go, all right, I'm going to sign an NDA and have a look at the scope of this, and then submit a proposal. And when they submit a proposal, they tag in the consultant profile on the marketplace to show that this is the person that's going to be doing the work. Now, the consultants are background checked, police checked, industry certifications checked, education qualifications checked, and there's an interview with a previous customer that the consultants work for. And that during that interview, we go through, I've done some research associated with, academic research associated with trust, and I've focused on questions associated with competency, benevolence, and integrity. And so there's a bunch of different questions, and based on all of those questions, and the interview gives you 1/5 of an overall rating score for a consultant. So you could end up with a 5-star consultant, and that gives you the consultancy admin submits the proposal with a consultant for the work, and then the client can have a look at all of the bids that have been made and decide which ones they want to award to, and move through to a complete project management suite of tools. So effectively, you could, from a consultancy management perspective, you could actually run a remote consultancy through this marketplace.
Well, so it's that involved, right? Where it's not just hooking me up with someone that wants a pen test, right? I can kind of manage. It's not just a swipe right. Yeah, I can manage the contract. But I did want to ask you, Gordon. So it sounds like the reference check is 1/5 of the score. Did you say that? Like, what are the other 4?
Roughly, yeah. It's an algorithm that just sets the initial score, and then after the initial score, there's feedback from the client, which comes back to which loops back into the rating score for moving forwards. So that's why I describe it as it's similar to Uber in that you get a rating score, and each engagement is given you end up getting a rating score from that feedback from that engagement, which loops back in and gives you, so you can have a 5-star, a 4.8.
Right. So you gotta have a clean.
With less than 3, then you can be removed from the marketplace.
So you gotta have a clean background check. You gotta have a clean reference. They get you the first part of your score. The rest of your score is determined by basically a crowdsourced rating system from the clients that you do business with through the platform.
Yes, that's correct.
That's interesting. So you gotta keep your clients separate.
Now, are there alternatives to like some of the prereqs and qualifications? Because I mean, there's a lot of us that don't have degrees. There's a lot of us that
don't have certs that have certs that have expired, like myself.
Yes.
Well, expired certification, for example, it's still treated with a certain amount of score, but the factor that it is expired scores against you.
Yeah. Jeff, you had a question?
I mean, an AWS architect certificate, for example, AWS in the last 3 years has brought out a whole bunch of different tools, different products. And so being an AWS security architect, a security specialist, will give you one level of assurance, but the fact that that it hasn't been renewed, if it's been longer than 3 years, that will count against you.
Jeff?
Now from an off.
No,
Jeff.
Tyler.
Hold
on. Jeff, then Tyler.
A couple questions. I guess initially, maybe it's a multi-part question. How do you guys define what a consultant or a consultancy actually is? What does that even mean?
Jeff, did you change your background to also a Archer background?
I did.
I love it.
Well done.
Same office, but I'm sitting behind the desk.
Right, different view.
Well, I don't have the library that the previous interviewee had. I have the drawing instead.
That's it.
He's got the real thing, so he's one-upped me on that. The question was surrounding...
what is a consultant? What is a consultancy in the context of what you're doing?
A consultancy has to be a formal business entity. So that could either be... In Australia, we have sole trader and a private company, a limited company. So it'd be like a LLC.
What's your equivalent of the LLC in Australia?
Yeah, PTY Ltd in Australia.
Okay.
So that's you've got directors, employees.
Do they have to have insurance?
Yes.
What type of is there a specific? Because there's different types, right? There's liability, and then the errors and omission.
PIPL, so professional indemnity and public liability.
So is that like
is the
errors
packages
and
that we
omission?
use in Australia. So something similar to that.
Yeah.
For the USA.
Yeah, because errors and omission would be the insurance in the USA that if you're doing pen testing, you get to a certain point where RFPs and clients will require that not only you have liability, but you have a certain amount of errors and omissions, right? $1 million of errors and omissions, at least back almost 20 years ago when I was doing it, was the limit. It's probably higher now.
To 10 maybe.
Yeah.
10 to, and public, I think, is 20 roughly in Australia. So there's the industry standard is higher, is more than just a million in Australia. Although some people get away with the lowest level, but some businesses do require a higher level of insurance.
Tyler, you're shaking your head. You don't have insurance, Tyler.
No, I definitely do. I mean, a million is definitely within the U.S.
Within the U.S. is
major
he's insured with Bitcoin.
Yeah. So $1 million to $3 million in the U.S. is pretty much the standard, but that can vary. Sure.
Cool.
Pretty much, yeah. Any 500 fortune is going to be that.
If I may, though, let me try to restate the question because, it's a certain type of company.
It's a business
responding. But in terms of a person, an individual who you're presumably works for the consultancy, the consultant, what is your idea? And this is not a right or wrong question. This is just I'm trying to get an idea of what you mean, because in America, at least in my experience, a lot of people call themselves consultants, and they do a vast variety of different things. I happen to be a consultant. I know what I am. I meet people that are also consultants. They do something completely different. So maybe a better way to ask the question is, do you have like sort of categories or buckets that you lump these consultancies in to try to categorize what they do?
There's services that they can provide. So a cybersecurity consultancy might provide pen testing or be an incident response capability, or a governance, risk and compliance. They may offer virtual CISO to small to medium businesses. And so there's different services that can be provided, but it's not and brings me to another category associated with the levels of consultants. So you have a junior, a senior, and a principal consultant, and they can end up being charged out by the consultancy at different prices. So it's the levels associated with that to determine so you can end up having different categories in the marketplace associated with, hey, we're only looking for the bottom cheapest pen test, and we're happy for a junior pen test to do that. So you go to the junior pen test, the junior consultant marketplace. So the consultancy, while they're different to different people, a cybersecurity consultancy, or at least a function of a cybersecurity consultancy, these services are pretty well defined across the industry. And so while the customer may not necessarily be knowledgeable about exactly what they're looking for, in the same way that someone comes to say, hey, I want a red team, what are you looking for? Well, the red team may, they end up describing a vulnerability assessment. So different, they're not really sure what they're looking for.
Yeah, how do you vet whether the company is a pen test puppy mill, as we've so unlovingly called those things? Because, some of these places, as we all very know, some places offer what we would define as a penetration test that we've defined in this show on numerous occasions. Other people and companies, I should say, call it a pen test, but it's really not that. It doesn't go into the level of depth and there can be a misconception. So, Gordon, does your platform help us kind of weed out what we call the pen test puppy mill?
That's a very good question. So, what I'm planning on doing with the platform is having a peer review process. So, an obligation that as a consultancy on the marketplace, you have to review a certain number of other people's work that have been redacted to a certain extent, but you have to make sure that you give them a score based on how good their work is, and not just spelling and grammar, but are they actually doing a proper pen test, or are they just doing a burp suite active scan or a Nessus scan?
I guess one of my concerns, Gordon, is like, what if a customer is upset for reasons that just slipped out of your control? And I think anyone who is a pen tester today, working in cybersecurity, maybe you're not pen testing, right? But you have clients, like there's always at least that one-off where you're like, I did everything. And an example, they're just upset because I found vulnerabilities in their network, even though that's what they hired me to do, right? Do you have a system that can kind of handle that? Like, I guess it's kind of like a sliding grade, like, right? You throw out the highest score and the lowest score. I hate to say that it's a grading on a scale, but do you take that into consideration?
There's a dispute process associated with so there is a way to flag an engagement experience that can go into a dispute process, and that'll be reviewed by CyberMarket.com staff and worked through, hear both sides of the story, and say at the end of the day, it's a milestone that clients have to approve to pay the consultancy, and if they're withholding that for some reason because they're for unjust, it's the marketplace takes the money up front, and so can release the funds to the consultancy as the outcome of a dispute process.
Oh, so do you handle the financial transaction as well?
Yeah.
Wow, that's
so
brave.
the financial transaction. It's once you've awarded the process involves before you can bid on the process, on the project, you have to sign an NDA.
Mm-hmm.
And so we got that going with an integration with DocuSign.
Yep.
And then after the NDA is signed, you can submit your proposal and your bid. And then if the client awards the project to you, you both negotiate milestones associated with the project, and as part of that milestone negotiation and service agreement signed, but once again through DocuSign. At the time that is all signed and we move into the project implementation phase, before all of that occurs, the funds are taken with for the project. It takes the value of the bid, and there's a commission on top, for using the marketplace.
So when is the blockchain backed smart contracts going to be integrated?
We'll see how we go. That's a very good question. It's I have done some work with blockchain and Bitcoin in my research. It's not. I haven't necessarily decided to move it onto a blockchain just yet. An advisor I was chatting to was like, "Oh, you could. How do you provide a form of equity to the consultancies to make sure that they stay and use the platform?" And one of the suggestions they came up with was, "Oh, why don't you just create a cryptocurrency, a token, and give them a percentage of give them tokens to a certain value." Which could either be equity or something related to the site. So, hey, you've got 50,000 CyberMarket dollars.
Gordon, two-part question. Do you support the concept of a deposit or prepaying a certain percentage up front? And what do you do if a client doesn't pay?
So the platform is designed so that everything is paid up front, but you can once it's paid up front, you put it into milestones, and so you can then decide, okay, well, the first part component is a deposit, so that'll be an early milestone.
Yep.
So we'll release the funds there.
I got. So you can create a payment schedule based on the project, which is smart.
Yep.
I like that. Yep.
But it has to be fully funded into the marketplace to make sure that we don't have situations where the client says, "Oh, I'm not going to pay."
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Because I mean, if you've done consulting for any period of time, again, it's that other rule, right? You got the one client that wasn't happy, and you got the one client that didn't pay. And if you're lucky, you've got those kind of one-offs in your business.
In percentages, hopefully this will get reasonable size. So with percentages, it's still going to be an effort that is required. Right. You still do end up with disputes. Sure. It's fundamentally, while you're doing a service for a pen test or a GRC audit, at the end of the day, it's not what you want it to be adversarial, but the client is not necessarily happy that an audit found vulnerabilities, or
it happens, man.
Pen test found vulnerabilities, or an audit found various things lacking, and now they have to spend money on it.
I had one client in all of my businesses in the past 20 plus years, one client go Chapter 11. And my lawyer and accountant at the time was like, to just move on, dude. Like, don't even, you could spend more resources trying to get your money, right? And that's, again, 20 plus years of business, that happened once. So
that's definitely a factor. It sucks, but that's why I am strong about making sure that there's funding up front.
Yeah,
and
that's smart.
In which using the platform is the intended purpose.
Well, I'm wondering what the startup time is. I mean, you talked about all the processes you get to vet somebody before they're able to do stuff. I'm wondering how because that could be incredibly manual.
Lee,
yes.
Is that a different angle of the Archer office? It is.
What Archer office? Well,
Very
Jeff
good.
had the other one, so I had to.
Oh wait, I moved around. I'm in a different place.
That's right.
Tell me about your GRC category. I'm trying to figure out if my is listed. That's my failed.
Certainly. So it's having spent a couple of years doing GRC audits for international bank. It's available for any sorts of specific audits associated with different standards. So you might need there might be a space for a PCI DSS. What are they there? I forget the acronym right now. It's a QSA or something.
QSA.
The assessor.
Qualified Security Assessor. QSA. Qualified Security Assessor.
I thought the A stood for something else, but
only in your mind.
And associated with a NIST audit, or a cybersecurity framework, or a controls audit associated with 853, or a third-party vendor. The global bank I was working for was headquartered in Australia, so it was required to meet a certain financial regulation guideline that came in called APRA CPS 234, which was associated with the board of directors being directly responsible for the cybersecurity of any third-party vendors.
Well, let me ask another question another way. I'm sorry. How are you filling your knowledge base of companies?
How am I filling? Sorry, you'll have to expand a bit on that, please.
Sure, Jeff. Say it in Australian.
How am I filling the companies? How am I finding companies to come join?
How are you throwing the consultancies on the Barbie? How do you identify them, list them,
So there's an onboarding process associated with the consultants, with the background checks, etc. So that can take a bit of time because it's manual at the moment. But the idea is to have that to a certain extent automated to assist, and that's the background checks, the police check, the education check, qualifications check, the industry certifications check, the interviews with previous customers. That still needs to be people based. So the classifying consultancies, they have a public profile so that they can write whatever they would like about themselves. The consultancies get rated out of 5, as well as the consultants. So there's potential for a leaderboard of international consultancies, and likewise a leaderboard of international cybersecurity consultants.
Gordon, some people that work as consultants today do have a criminal record. Most of us know they have a criminal record. Are they automatically excluded? There are no exceptions?
No, they're not automatically excluded.
Okay.
But if that is that would affect the rating score. Mm-hmm. So while they may have had a criminal record, it may be associated with something that's unrelated to InfoSec. It comes down to
what if they were convicted for? I mean, many of them have been convicted. Many of them are convicted.
That we put on it.
What if they're convicted under the U.S. Title 18 CFAA, or have been in the past? Is that an issue, or it just affects their score?
I think that would be an issue. Basically, it comes down to what the clients would want. So if the clients would see that would not be prepared to hire a consultant that has been past the Computer Fraud Abuse Act, then they might not necessarily be wanting to have that person on their network. Mind you, there's the old adage associated with you spend the time, and then after you spent the time, you become a highly paid consultant. Right. So that needs to be it needs to be taken with a grain of salt. It needs to be evaluated to determine, are they trustworthy for a client, and that gets reflected in the rating score. So it doesn't necessarily exclude them completely. It just gives them a lower rating score than someone that doesn't have a criminal record.
So have you had any that didn't make the cut, didn't make the grade just to begin with, or that you've had to ask to leave?
No, not yet. So it's still early days. We've just got to the point where we're onboarding consultancies at the moment. So we've got about 4-5 consultancies that are in the process of being onboarded at the moment. And we've also got an Australian Stock Exchange listed financial services company we're in negotiations with to try to convince them to use the marketplace. They're actually very keen to use the marketplace for an overflow as a partial full-time employee man hours, and keep consultants on a retainer. So they're very interested in being able to use the marketplace in that way.
Does that include like incident response and like NOC/SOC analysts, people to spin up for
forensics firms?
Forensics, yeah.
Yeah, there'll be room for them as well. So the incident response teams can come on and list their services as. So the idea is that we turn CyberMarket into a one-stop shop for cyber services. Products can potentially come later, but we're starting small. We don't need to own the world just yet. Starting small as a global marketplace.
But it also sounds like you're really leveraging the human touch. You're not out there posting on a bulletin board. You're actually reaching out to people person to person to build relationships. Yeah,
so it's not just advertising and brand awareness to make sure that clients come into the marketplace, or consultancies in that matter. it does include posting on Facebook groups, for example, saying, "Hey, come join the marketplace as consultants." But the client side of things, we're treating it. I basically decided that I could either ramp up my own consultancy or create a marketplace and ramp up that. And I figured the marketplace would be more beneficial for solving the problem that I had, which was, why can't I just go somewhere and select a job from a job list as a independent consultancy? Why can't I just get like an assassin board on John Wick, that kind of thing?
So what? I mean, what's the overhead if I want to use your services? It seems like it would scale nicely, but right now it might be a little high.
Yeah, it's there's overhead associated with the people's touch, as you described, associated with an interview with the prospective consultant and interview with previous customers and onboarding, checking their identity, background checking, etc. Bringing them on. There is some overhead associated with that, and so we'll be looking for ways of improving those processes down the track. There's always room for improvement and efficiency.
But I also assume as a member of your service, I'm giving you something out of each of my engagements. Is that a correct assumption? Or
yeah. So the cost to the client and the consultancy is there's a commission associated with each transaction that passes through, as well as a subscription service for the consultancy based on per consultant. So if there's a consultancy with 10 consultants, the consultancy pays for the 10 consultants to be listed on the marketplace. At the end of the day, the consultancy admin is coming along and going, "Hey, I want Paul to be the consultant that does the job," and the client's going, "Okay, well, you want Paul, so you're submitting Paul. I've got someone from a different someone from India submitting a request with Rajesh to come and be the consultant." And so they can actually look at who the person is, what the rating is of that consultant, and make an objective decision.
Rajesh wins also every time in that scenario, just saying.
It seems like you're not going to be confined to any one country. You're looking at a worldwide potential base.
So it's a .com, but I've got trademarks in the UK and Europe, and negotiating with India, and we've got one in Australia, and still working out the quirks of the trademark system for CyberMarket.com in the USA. So the idea is to go big, yes.
Any unexpected difficulty in doing all that, or has it been about what you expect?
It's pretty much what I expect. The international arm of the lawyers that I've got, trademark lawyers, have been very good at putting through. There's the Madrid protocol associated with putting in trademarks around the globe, and so I've put in requests within that protocol. The only one I've come up with is I'll most likely have to change the logo very slightly for the USA, as there's another cybersecurity company with a similar logo. So that's it won't be a very big change. It'll just be a difference.
Yeah. Well, that sounds pretty optimistic overall. I was expecting it to be much more difficult for you.
No, it was actually quite simple. That the lawyers submitted there's an international agreement which for trademarks called the Madrid Protocol, and which you just submit for whichever classes in whichever countries, and the lawyers went and did it for a fee, as lawyers do.
Mm-hmm. Everything comes with a fee when we talk about attorneys.
Yes.
Jeff?
So picking up again on the I'm still trying to fish for whether my company was listed. It sounds like if my company wants to be listed, it needs to engage with you. Is that an accurate statement?
Yes. Before the consultants and consultancy gets approved, it needs to be the consultants need to be background checked. Now, I don't know if you have a particular computer fraud, the CFAA record, but I've heard that you're ex-NSA, so there may be a space for you on the marketplace.
You're just dangling that carrot, aren't you?
Oh, we'd love to have you on the marketplace.
Well, out of curiosity, you brought it up first. He brought it up first, Paul. He mentioned PCI and QSAs. There's somewhere south of roughly 400 QSA companies in the world. By my best estimate, there's about 85 or so that are licensed to operate in Australia, let's say. Is it your intent to list all of them? You would love to list all of them? Do you know if you have listed any QSA companies to date?
I think I've got one of the consultancies that's coming on that does have a PCI DSS certification. I don't know if I think they are a QSA, but they were with a particular organization and they've gone out and started their own, and they're doing quite well. They've got about 5 employees at the moment, and so I'm looking to onboard that company onto the marketplace. I've been having interviews with them recently, and so I would love to have 100% of all of these companies on the marketplace, but I'm realistic in that if I can get 20 or 30%, that's still a good place. I'd like to have closer to 80 to 100% of companies and have CyberMarket.com as a one-stop shop. So I like to say, need cyber, think CyberMarket.com.
Gordon, to that end, is it focused on pen testing, or could it be any project where we're willing to take on a consultant to complete a project related to cybersecurity?
The cybersecurity element. So that could be a pen test. It could be a security assessment, a technical security assessment associated with a project, just to make sure that it passes the security assessment gate.
Does it have to be? So let me rephrase the question, Gordon. Does it have to be a security assessment, or could it be a research project or some other kind of engagement where self-servingly, I need talent in cybersecurity. I'm putting together an RFP.
It's talent in cybersecurity. You're right.
Okay.
It's talent in cybersecurity. So you may need a SOC analyst for a 6-month contract. You can do that through the marketplace.
If I need someone to do webcasts or labs research or something like that, right? That's all good.
You may be able to. It's cybersecurity services at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
So while it's not necessarily a creative content or marketplace,
sure,
similar to Fiverr or other creatives marketplaces. So it's specific to a cybersecurity service.
Mm-hmm. Tyler, Jeff Lee. Sorry, go ahead, Gordon.
Go.
Tyler, Jeff Lee.
I'm good.
That was a very selfish question towards the end, in case you were wondering.
Well, it's related to cybersecurity. You're looking for helping with the webcast. It's not necessarily a freelancer.com where you can just go and find someone to go do something,
right,
or a Airtasker. It's specifically for cybersecurity services.
Yeah, I'd be looking for someone to do cybersecurity research on a topic and then present on it as part of the project. As an example.
You can do that as a project.
Right.
I'm sure you could find someone from a consultancy who will do that for you.
Right? To your point, Gordon, like if you're out there and doing pen tests, like that's the person I want to do some research and then come present on it, because I'm looking for people with that experience, basically.
Yeah, we're happy to have you on the marketplace to put forward a project for research.
Yeah.
I'll show you the link and we'll get everything prepared.
Okay. Yeah, sounds good. Is there a cost to the client, or like what are there costs associated to be involved with it, or you just have to go through the process and then you make your money basically taking a percentage?
So there's the percentage, but there's also a subscription fee on a monthly basis for the consultancy and the consultant.
Okay, but not for the client. If I want to go put in an RFP, I don't have to pay a subscription?
I did some work in the security department in freelancer.com, and they had scammers and spammers on the marketplace, and I've implemented a nominal fee in order to submit a project.
Okay,
so you don't.
Gotcha.
So to avoid those sorts of spammers.
Yeah, perfect.
So there's I think it's about $10 to submit a project, and there's and bidding is protected as well. Awesome. Because you don't want one consultancy to spam every single project necessarily.
Right. That's awesome.
And so the cost of the client, the consultancy is going to most likely put through the commission into their costs, and so both sides end up paying for it.
Yeah, that's fair. Gordon, just 5 additional questions. Are you ready to play 5 questions with Security Weekly?
Yeah, looking forward to it.
3 words to describe yourself. Excuse me.
Tenacious, upbeat, and energetic.
If you were a serial killer, what would be your weapon of choice?
Well, I've seen a few knife fights in various movies, so I think it'd be a knife. I don't think it would necessarily be a poison or I don't see myself doing any kind of harm to anyone at all, to be honest. But given the premise of the question, I think it'd be. I've always been fascinated by some of the gangsters that used to run around with knives in the 1900s and 1920s.
If you wrote a book about yourself, what would the title be?
The amazing adventures of a successful entrepreneur.
What is your favorite hacker movie?
That's a tough one. I heard the previous interviews answers. I would probably say, I'd probably say Hackers. Like I really like Sneakers as a second.
Yay!
But
in your face, Jeff.
That's But I remember sitting in the cinema and watching Hackers in 1995 and going, I'm not very far away from that at the moment. So it's just a matter of time before I get there.
And can hack your Gibson. Choose 2 celebrities to be your parents.
Alive, dead, fictional, or otherwise.
Ooh. I would say I've changed my mind. So I was going to say Harrison Ford and Dame Judi Dench, but I think I might, because we can go with previous. Errol Flynn had the looks of he was very successful with women throughout Hollywood. The Australian movie actor from the 40s, I think. And so I think he'd be a good role model. I think he'd be a good if you had a parent that would give you genetics. I think someone that has someone associated with the screen screen time as an actor would be someone that would be a good role model. Whether Errol Flynn was necessarily a good role model from womanizing, I don't think that's the case. So I'll backtrack as far as I can from that.
Was that two parents? I don't know. I think there was three.
What?
We're open-minded.
We're open. I mean, three parents is cool too. I mean, whatever.
It's a blended family.
It's a blended family. Gordon, thank you so much for appearing on Paul's Security Weekly.
Thank you very much. I've really enjoyed it.
CybersecurityMarket.com. Go check it out. Coming up next, the security news for this week. Stick around.